All right. So we are officially recording. For those of you who not sure, that's just so we can post it online and people can see what we've been doing. I'm gonna miss that bit. So for Kat and Mike Gallagher who are just joining us, yeah. That's our vision mission, and really the focus for me is on the second piece, which is to try to inspire the soccer community to grow. And if this helps do that, that's great. But our job as OSA is simply to try to give you some support in whatever ways you would like to grow. So this is the fifth of six, yeah, and then the next one will be our last one for the winter. That'll be a lot of video watching, so again a little bit of a different twist to that one as well. The focus is always on this. If the US wants to be the preeminent sport, it really comes down to a lot about what we do at the grassroots to create better coaches and keep more players in the game, and hopefully make some better, and that feeds what comes up above. But ultimately we're just trying to grow the grassroots and keep more kids in the game, which is the environments and player retention piece. I've cited the fun maps a number of times through the winter, and this was the research from Amanda VISEK at George Washington, and this was in 2015, and it spurred a lot of conversations in the soccer world. 3 years ago, I think, just before COVID, that was in 2020, so 2019, I did some research. It was a little bit parallel, and then eventually I hooked in with Amanda on the data analysis side. So what you're going to see tonight, it sort of relates to these ideas, which have been pretty consistent with players as you ask them. And then what I did was ask players specific questions that would relate to what is it that motivates you as a player, and what does that mean for us as coaches. So we're going to have a little bit of back and forth here between the quizzes and then just some discussion about what the various sections mean. And then Stephen, if you're okay, if I can have Adrian and you run groups tonight. Stephen, are you actually physically there? Otherwise I'll do it.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay with that? Yeah. And then Adrian, is that good for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, okay. So the fun map piece, I highlighted the elements that were relevant to the questions I asked the players. That there are more to these, but in terms of the questions I asked the players, that really was brought out by the responses. So for example, we go to positive team dynamics, which was the second tier, and the idea of having a positive environment to play in. The third part was the idea of positive coaching, and there's some issues about what that means. And it's funny, I just talked to a president of a league today down in the Cincinnati neighborhood, and he sort of described this verbatim without knowing what he was describing. The fact that with young kids, good coaches tend to keep more kids involved. Good coaches who are good soccer coaches keep more kids involved. The coaches who are a little bit more aggressive with the players tend to lose their kids. So it was interesting. He mentioned that unsolicited. The fourth piece, which I haven't shown in this forum before, I've highlighted again the idea of learning from mistakes. We want to get touches, meaning participation. You got to teach us new things, help us understand the game. Excellent. The idea of games, getting playing time is important. Where's my favorite position, and playing against even teams. And then the last one I've got in this particular group tonight is the idea of what practices look and feel like, and how we deal with players to make them enjoy practice and hopefully make them get better. So those were the 6 pieces from the fun maps. I haven't gone through the last 5. So our first group here is a little quiz, and this is where the chat room comes in. All I'm going to have you do is, for the most part, write 2 numbers in. So the root question to the players, they feel, would they improve more by being in a game or more by watching from the sidelines? Most of these are not landslides, but they're pretty close. So just to get us moving and get you thinking, if you would open the chat room and put in what numbers you think are in those two boxes. Players feel they would improve more by being in the game, improve more by watching from the sidelines. It's a scale of 1 to 100. What's the numbers? So Kevin, just pick two numbers. 50-50 if you want to think it's an even decision.
No, I'd say 75-25.
You're going 75-25, all right? Anybody else want to chip in?
Probably more like 80, 20, or
What do you-
even 10.
I wasn't sure. I know somebody's speaking. I couldn't hear them. Who was that?
That was Mark.
Well, what do you think, Mark?
Maybe as high as 90, 10.
We got
I get
80-20
the
for
impression-
Mike. All right, let's see how it goes. 1,600 kids. How about that? Almost 100% of them saying, look, if you'll put me in the game, it's probably a good, better chance I'm going to learn more. All right, next one. Would they rather play all the time for a losing team or sit on the bench all the time for a winning team? I asked the team this yesterday and it was interesting. Mike Gallagher, you were 80-20 last time. Where are you going with this one?
Oh, I'd probably be high again, 90-10.
I blew it. I put it up there.
Oh.
90 to, yeah, so it's again in the 90%, 9 out of 10. I asked the group yesterday, 100% of them said, oh, we'd rather play. All right, moving along. This is kind of a no-brainer, Captain Obvious question, but we spend a lot of time shouting at kids sometimes without understanding their motivation. I don't know who the 1% is, but 1% of the kids surveyed decided they would like somebody negative and demeaning. Next one. This is a multi-level question. They could have answered more than one. So the question probably is, what percentage of the kids would consider quitting if they weren't having fun with their teammates and not really improving as a player versus having fun with their teammates and improving? What do you folks think about that one?
Number's got to be pretty high for the first.
That would be a safe bet. Good. You want to put a number on it?
That's got to be like 80%. I would say 80%.
Okay.
75, 80%.
All right. What about the percentage of kids who would consider quitting if it wasn't, if they were having fun with their teammates and whether they're not, they improved as a coach? Where do you think that one goes?
I think that's low. So as long as they're having fun, if they're not really improving, I think they would stay. They would not quit.
You would be bang on the money. So how about that for a number? So if they're getting better, even though the teammates aren't so bad, there's still a 30% chance they'll quit. If you have fun with your teammates and improving as a player, there's basically pretty good chance they're going to stay in the game. So that becomes important for us. All right. Where'd you like to go with this one? So this relates to the coach and improving players. Kat, you want to have a bash at this?
I'm still reading. Sorry. I was writing down stuff.
I'm
from
going to
before.
send you all of this. So you don't have to keep notes. I'm going to send you.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm going to actually give you in a second because I'm going to have you go chat about this.
Well, obviously it's high on the top if coach is not very nice and doesn't improve players. Like,
But there, you're ahead.
okay, here we go.
So there you go. You got, again, 9 out of 10 would say if the coach isn't a very nice person and I'm not getting any better, I'm probably more likely to consider quitting. And at the bottom, if the coach is nice, got a positive attitude from the coach, that may be enough to keep me in the game. Even though you don't teach me anything, that may be enough to keep me in the game. So interesting thoughts. How about this one? Brian Cox, you want to have first dibs on this? Nope. Kevin, what do you think?
I'd go 100% being the first one.
So I asked this question. It was, again, another Captain Obvious, but kids don't try to make mistakes, but they make a lot of mistakes. And most of the time, they're not trying, but we tend to give them a lot of grief many times just because they make a mistake. That it's really not, it's just the way they are, it's the way they play. So how about this one related to this? They're not trying to make mistakes, but how do you think they would prefer to be treated in terms of, yeah, making a mistake, coach, deal with it one of two ways. It's a necessary part of learning, or you're supposed to criticize me at this point. What do you think that number is?
98-0.
We're getting there,
92.
92-8. All right, so again, the heavy majority on just if I lose the ball, just deal with it. Don't worry about it. It's okay. It's just part of the game. All right, so I'm going to send you off in discussion groups. Group 1 is going to be Adrian. Group 2 is going to be, and I need to send you a file. This is where I'm hoping my technology skills are working here. All right, so far so good. So I'm just sending you a link. If you want to download that link, it will give you all of the questions we've just talked about so that you've got a reference in hand. And then I'm going to create 2 breakout rooms. Adrian will be in number 1 and Stephen will be in number 2. I'm just going to randomly assign other than that. All right, let's see. What did I say, Stephen? You're number 2?
Yep.
And Adrian is number 1. Oh, I've only got 2 rooms. Hold on. I got to close this for a minute. I made a mistake here. Sorry. Recreate. I need 2 rooms. There we go. All right, let's try again. All right, Stephen's going to 2, Adrian's going to 1. So just a quick 5-minute discussion. What was your initial reaction to those and what does that mean for us as coaches? All right, back in 5 minutes. Nathan, you got a room? Yeah. That's a nice picture there, Steve. You're looking, you got the nice bokeh going in the background there. It's that could be a good photo. We lost everybody, have we? Where are they all?
We're back.
I hope
Oh,
not.
there we go. We're all back. Got to pull out the thing. Okay, we're going to leave just the report now and just your thoughts until the end because I want to move, get you back into discussions again. So next round. What would be more fun? Hi, Kat. I just found your professional name. It's Ekaterina. Lovely. What do you think? What would the kids tell you they'd rather do?
Sorry, were you asking me?
No, well, I'm going to give you first dibs on it if you want. What do you think you'd rather do?
The
What's more fun?
kids, I'm sorry.
Yep, go on. What's more fun, blowouts or close games?
Hold on. I think I'm. I would say close games.
Go with the players. It's a lot more fun to risk losing. Okay. So how about this one? Mark, you want to try this one first? You're muted, my friend. Try unmuting Mark and then try again. There you go. Oh, still quiet.
Hello, can you hear
There you go. You're very, very distant, but we can just hear you.
Okay, I need to lean in. I'm not sure where my speaker is. I'm practically laying on top of this thing. You still can't hear me. I guess I don't need my glasses to read anymore. Maybe I still do need my glasses. No, I think they'd want to be on the field longer, continuously playing 15, 20 minutes. If they're going to play 40 minutes in a game, they'd probably rather do 2 20-minute shifts than 8 5-minute shifts. So I'd probably say, I'd probably say 75-25.
Yep. And it's actually interesting for you can talk about the coaching implications of this when you go into the next breakout room, but that's a significant number. When you consider what you tend to be doing as a youth coach and what you spend most of your time doing on the sideline, and now they're giving us an out. So it's interesting. All right, next one. Kevin, what do you think? Which one wins that?
Let me read the second one. The first one, the 100% to 0, 78-22. There you go.
It's close enough. They do want to go and find a way to win. And my thought is that's an important lesson for us. And I'm trying hard to bite my tongue and let you get into your discussions and see what you think. All right, next one. This is actually interesting. I may have to explain this a little bit. Brian C. or Nathan, you want to have a bat? I like all those books, Nathan. Are you at school or are you just a bookworm?
I'm just too embarrassed to show you behind my my rule.
It's a screensaver. Okay, what do you think about this one?
I mean, I think they would prefer the first option when they've got a little bit more time and space to make decisions and think. At least until they're at a skill level where they would thrive on there being too many people on the field. But when the field space is too small and it's overcrowded, they tend to make a lot of mistakes and don't get as much out of the game.
And I'm stunned by the percentage of kids, and the number in this one was only 90. This is something I've been asking kids for a long time, and the answer's pretty consistent. So, yeah. And what does that mean for practice? All right, I'm going to send you the link again. So there's the. Oh, come on, go send. There you go. So there's the questions. You can download those, have those available. And then we're going to go back into breakout rooms again. And you can have a quick 5-minute discussion about what you think about those. So
Are
again,
you sending us out there?
yeah, I've given you the information, so you've got that, and I'm going to put the rooms open. Hopefully you're going. So 5 more minutes.
Here, kick me out to the room again. I accidentally just pushed the wrong button.
Who was that? Nick, Kevin?
Kevin. Yeah.
Kevin,
I'm
you
sorry.
are going with Stephen. No, it says move through. Let me put you in there. I'll move you back again.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, there you go.
It's not letting me leave. Where am I? There it is. I got it.
Got
Sorry
it?
about that.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
only 9.
Say again, Steve.
Well, there's only 9 of us, isn't there? So we can get a bit of a Q&A going at the end with the 2 groups.
Yeah. I think there's only 2 more discussions. So 3rd round. How are we doing so far, Kat? You passing the quiz?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. This relates specifically to drills clearly versus games. It's not a slam dunk. What do you think?
80-20.
Yeah, we got an 80-20 vote. All right. So it was interesting.
Ooh.
Some of the kids want to be told what to do. I'm not sure who they are, but it was 1,600 kids and 30% of them said, yeah, we want to be told what to do. So it's an interesting thought. On the other hand, 7 out of 10 will say, just let me make my own call. Let me figure out what's going on. So there was the interesting question about mistakes. do you think that number is?
My kids hate it when I stop play and have a teaching moment. So I'm going to say it's, I'm going to say it's like 5% on the bottom and then 95 up top.
Okay. Oh. Close enough. Most of the kids, I think if you say to them, just, you can talk about this when you get in the group and we come back together. But the notion of attacking, defending, and transitioning, that they clearly understand that when you lose the ball, the important thing is to try to win it back, not stop and tell me how I screwed up. So it's, the kids are reinforcing just a lot of the things that we would anticipate, I would think. All right.
Yeah, 90-10 again.
Yeah,
You're going big. Kat, you smiling?
I agree.
Nailed that one. And it's a really difficult skill, but you can talk about that a little bit and maybe we can summarize tonight. That is a learned skill on our end and being able to coach in the flow. So, all right.
I'd go big again.
Yep, go big.
How about that was
Oh,
in
that's a
the,
surprise.
in the cricket world, that's called a googly, which means you don't expect it to wobble the way it did. So this was the original question I asked them, and I came back and I tried again. And this is an area, there's a couple areas here that are not as obvious as they seem. So I asked that one, and I try to qualify it with challenging new technique or skill. The players would prefer coach who gave them small chunks of information. We know that that's the better way to learn when you get small chunks, but response was a little better. It was 90. Okay, that's good. But then it got googly-ish again. I asked them that. And I got that again.
Mm.
Now, the good thing is when you break up into rooms here, you're with two people who've got a pretty good handle on the way youngsters think. And so there's a good discussion to be had on here because it's like anything else, you can look for an answer and then try to justify your answer based on data, but the data is telling us there's something we got to consider here. So we'll see what Stephen and Adrian contribute to that, but that was an interesting one. It came back, they seem to think they process information quickly. My head tells me otherwise, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to go off and just quickly discuss those. And let me send you the third group of, so you can download those results. Quick trip for 5 minutes. How's the 5 minutes that time? Still too short?
I think it's fine because I think we're going to come back at the end. I think there's more to discuss there because you get into, well, we were talking a little bit about like short-term memory and long-term working memory. So, or at least I was, so, and processing information.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more complex.
It's good. Okay, last bout, and I think we'll just stay here after this and we'll all, we'll just wrap this up together. So I'm going to send you the fourth link, but if you want to keep the suspense going, don't look at it. All right. Players would rather come to practice. What would they rather do? I was actually surprised when I got the answers back on this one. I was expecting one, I got another.
10, 80, 10, 0.
10, 80, 10, 0. Okay.
That's
Oh, come on, 100% on the fitness. What?
This one I was surprised at. I actually
Wow.
expected it to go free play, position related games, and then clearly drills that nobody likes and nobody wants to do any fitness outside of soccer. But this was interesting for me because it says a lot about what the kids want to learn from being in the game.
Interesting. Yeah. And just a personal experience. I've tried to do that with kids, setting them up with hey, it's 5v5, go play, and they spend their time the first couple minutes trying to figure out who's playing what position. So I've learned that the hard way, that evidently they prefer being told where they're playing as opposed to or having a position to play as opposed to just getting out there and playing.
Yep. No, agreed. There's something about understanding the game that we do the kids a disservice to related to this. So this would fit right in with us, right? If we're asking them if you want to play games, and they'll say, yeah, I want to play games, but help me understand how the game works, and then let me make my own decisions as opposed to telling me. So if we follow that logic, they clearly support that. They'll say, yeah, you can help me read what I'm supposed to read, but then get out of the way and let me play. But if you want me to understand something, that's fair.
Hey,
Next
Tom,
one. Yeah.
Tom, one quick question. Not just on this one, just occurred to me. You mentioned number 1,600 people were surveyed or kids were surveyed. What was the age range?
10 to 18. These went all the way from rec kids to kids who were playing in the DA.
Okay, all right.
So there was about 50-50 split gender-wise. There was I've got the numbers, but I didn't put them up here, but it was a very good cross-section geographically, age-wise, gender-wise, ability-wise, and there was no differences between the groups, which was another significant piece. You would expect DA kids to be more or less competitive than rec kids, and they weren't. Rec kids are competitive. Rec kids want to know what's going on in the game too. So interesting.
Thanks.
Yep, no, it's a good question. How about this one? Those who've been around and done a couple of these before, you should know the answer to that. Who's going to take a plunge?
1090.
This was closer, but not 1090.
Okay. It's totally wrong.
The significant piece was that 60% of them clearly understand. I asked the kids this yesterday in a clinic in Michigan. They realize that homework is their job. You know, one of the things we can do is help them understand what to practice and help them with their direction. But ultimately, the kids who practice at home are the ones who are probably the better players. And what that means is that we can then go back to this kind of piece and get after the game a lot more. And this is not something that they're going to push back on because they realize, yeah, I've got homework to do. But here's where I get funky. And I'm just in terms of time so we can chat, I'm going to throw this up. So the question related to, when you're playing in competitive games, what kind of practice activities would help you perform better in competitive games? I'm going to go to Steve and Adrian, just because if you haven't seen this may be interesting, because both these guys work in the sport pedagogy world with me. And let me show you the next two slides and then we'll come back and just react to them. So I then asked them, all right, if you're playing in practice and you're playing in structured games where you're learning about positional play, what do you think about those kind of activities helping you perform in competitive games? All right, so I got a good response. 91% of them said, that's reasonable. We think that's good. So then I flipped it around the other way and I said, what about structured drills where you're learning about technique? How do you think those would help you play in competitive games? And 78% of them said, yeah, they probably help me too. And again, I was taken aback by this, but you got to look at what players tell us. And if you're going to take the sugar, you better take the salt. So this Stephen, Adrian, you have anything, just a reaction to that? Does that make sense to you in some ways, or would that be a surprise to you too?
Can you flick it back to the
Yeah.
the initial question?
Yeah. So here was the 49-51 split.
Yeah, that one. That one.
I asked, yeah. So while you're reading it, I'm basically thinking they should be answering, if I'm going to play in competitive games, I should be practicing competitive games. And that's what the other results told us. They clearly think there's more value in playing structured games. But now you're bringing in this element of technique. So I'll just flip it through and let Adrian and Steve just respond any way they want to respond to this. So that was the structured games piece. That was kind of trying to steer it in one direction. And the 10% at the bottom was probably telling. And then this was trying to steer it towards the drills. And 22% at the bottom. So it kind of swayed a little bit less useful. Statistically significant, but any reaction to that off the top, guys?
I'd be curious to see on that one a little bit the breakdown of age, because you mentioned there were 10 to 18-year-olds.
Yeah, there wasn't apparently any difference when Amanda did the data. There wasn't a difference between the younger kids and the older kids. It was amazing. Just amazing.
What if you had both on the original question? Does that change it?
Well, I think that was this, and clearly this is just something we have to go look at again, right? But it's to me, it tells me something. It tells me that the kids appreciate that technique is important, and they got to get it somewhere. They realize that if they're technically illiterate, they can't play in organized games.
Mm-hmm.
So how we deliver that to them and how we help develop the technical side, knowing that just from where I'm going to say the three of us come from, gameplay has a much more, it's a fun component. It's got more value to it in terms of how quickly you can take people on, but we can't ignore the fact that they want to learn about technique. They feel that they want to find ways to improve their individual skills so that they can play better in games. So that's my take, I think, from those three, and we can't ignore that. But that was the most interesting finding in the study for me. So we're not going to go back into breakout rooms, and we do have a few minutes. So just an open discussion. Anybody comments anywhere you want to take this information, what it might mean for you, what it means for you as coaching, what's the most encouraging and the most alarming piece of information you saw?
I think one of the encouraging things is that, you may have to do some integration of technical drills, but it certainly can't be the majority of your practice or even a substantial amount of it. But the kids may tolerate and benefit from some portion of that. And then you also need your structured scrimmaging and free play worked in, and then letting them play, being positive all the time, and not necessarily stopping play to call them out for mistakes.
That's a pretty good summary, Nathan. Other thoughts?
I was saying that to our group on the first discussion that our club just did a survey, and one of the parents was telling me on theirs, they wrote, well, Steve does the same things at practice, he just does in different ways all the time. So you kind of keep the vitality of the kids, but there's only so much you can do, like at U11, before you sort of move on, because they've moved on, if you know what I mean. So I agree with Nate there about, so you can't let the technical stuff just go and ignore it and hope that magically they'll just get better. I think that it does need to be addressed in some capacity, and not just from an impression management standpoint, but you should have a concern, because you want the kids to develop some perceived and actual competence in that regard. But I do think that the majority of the session needs to be in game-like conditions for sure.
I asked the kids yesterday, we had a thought, was that Saturday? I was working with 7-year-olds on Saturday, and then 12, 13-year-olds yesterday. And I think it was the 8-year-olds that says, how many surfaces can you score a goal with? And they all looked at me sideways. I says, how many parts of your feet can you kick the ball in the goal with and it counts? So before I go, Mike, do you know the answer of how many surfaces of your feet you can use to score a goal?
All of them?
Yeah, how many are there?
Uh,
Take a guess.
5.
Close enough, 6. All right, so the front, back, side, up, top, bottom, side, front, and back, right? Anything that hits your foot goes in the goal, counts 1, we win the World Cup. Good. And the kids, I said, what if you kick it in with your heel? And they couldn't get the notion that because nobody had said to them, it's okay to pass the ball with your heel or kick the ball or do something with your heel, that it was all right, that it was a surface you could use. And so this is always the challenge. A lot of our kids just play with like 2 surfaces, the inside of the foot and the laces. They'll kick it with the laces, they dribble it with the inside of the foot, and it's really inconvenient if you don't use other surfaces. So part of the challenge of technique is how do you get kids to use surfaces they don't use? And that's where I think I agree with those of you who are sharing that sentiment. Then there's got to be times in practice where we can change the range of techniques, but we can actually do that within games. If you just simply play a 2v2, 3v3, 4v4 game, and you say to the kids, you have to use the bottom of your foot at least once in every possession. Kids will do something with the bottom part of their foot that they've never done before because they've rolled it, stopped it, dragged it, something, but it's technique in the context of a game. So it does, there are ways to do this, but I ended up doing little things with U8s on Sunday that I would never do with U8s before Saturday that I wouldn't do before, because somewhere along the line, you got to help with technique. Interesting. Other thoughts from anybody?
So we did have an interesting discussion about the perspective on space. And I think that was after the second element there. And obviously, one of the issues that sort of was discussed was, well, won't a tight space make them better players by having them play in a smaller area? And so we then talked about, well, yes, but if we want to try and get kids to create and try things a little bit different, then more space provides, in most instances, more opportunities for allowing kids to do that and experiment, particularly with the younger kids as well. And sometimes, obviously, the very young ones don't necessarily appreciate it at all. There's really no need for any space confines at all because of the way we worked. But there is that sort of notion as well, particularly at more elite levels, when people are practicing in very tight space, because that's how the way that teams defend and those types of things. So that was something that we spent some time talking about and looked at it from a different perspectives.
And a lot of people don't have the space to actually make the right ratio between the number of players and the amount of space. If you're playing 5v5, the field theoretically is about 50 yards long. And then about 2/3 of that would be, so about 50 by 30 is a reasonable space for 5v5, 60 by 40 is a reasonable space for 6v6. 7v7 would be 70 by about 35, 40-ish, 45. And then you can change it from there. But a lot of people just don't have that space. And certainly the U11, U12s got absolutely abused on the PDIs because the field at 80 by 55 is too small, because when you put halfway, offside at halfway, it squeezes the whole game into a 40-yard space. If those of you coach U9 and U10, at least the offside line is back another 15 yards. So you've got more space to build up because the offside doesn't kick in until later. Again, if you ask the kids, would you rather play in a shoebox or would you rather play in space? They'll reinforce that number that you saw on the screen. They don't like playing in tight spaces where they get overwhelmed by the opponents. They need time and space to see the game. So it's really, really important, that piece. Any other things jump out? We got time. This is the first time we've actually had a chance to discuss all winter. Mark, what was your biggest takeaway?
I guess was the technical training is a homework thing. Honestly, I've been preaching that for the last couple of years, and I'm glad to hear that some players, at least, think that that's their job. Not necessarily all my players are thinking that same way, but at least now I've got a piece of ammunition that says, 2 out of 3 players think they need to do this at home on their own before they come to practice. And actually, I've taken to calling, I don't call them practice anymore, I call them training. I tell them practice is what you do on your own. Training is what you do with the team. And not that we don't do some technical stuff, but the bulk of their technical skills should be developed when they're on their own. I don't want to do that at my practices.
So I'll give you ammo. Kat, what's your biggest takeaway?
I find it interesting that most of the kids prefer position-related games opposing to free play. So I think that's good, and they don't like drills, and they don't like fitness.
You said you coached U8, right?
Yes.
So let me just qualify that a little bit. That there comes a point where if they don't have enough sense of how to use space, putting too many of them in a positional structure is a bit counterproductive as well. Just for argument's sake, if they can only make space and use a 3v3 game to actually connect passes and build the game, putting them in a 6v6 game doesn't do any good because the space is overwhelming, the numbers are overwhelming. So there's always this balance based on what's in front of you in terms of players. So it may be that a 4v4 game with a goalkeeper and 3 field players is the start of developing positional awareness, but they still need a lot of 2v2, 3v3, 2v3 kind of games because there's concepts about the games that they still need to keep building. So because you've got U8s, that becomes something to just keep in mind. They need a balance of different kind of game forms. So fair. Kevin, Mike, any takeaways for you? Nathan?
No big surprises.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to follow a lot of things that I already taken in practice. I do drills for a portion of our practices. I do organized scrimmages. The kids love the scrimmages. And I say, the reason why you're doing drills, they don't like the drills, but I say the reason why you're doing the drills is so you can repeat those during the scrimmage. So you use them in a live environment. And that's why you're doing them, and you do them repetitively so that you get better and better at them. And that seems to work. So occasionally, if I do a drill where I'm doing pullbacks all the time, I'll see a couple pullbacks during a live performance, a live game. So it's nice.
Thank you. Brian, Lindsay, last words.
Nah, it was all pretty good. A lot of the stuff, you kind of touched bases over the last couple months, but
Okay.
there's some good discussion.
Super. And Lindsay, did you hear enough? I know you came in a bit late. Nope. Oh, yes. All right, folks. Thank you again for taking time out of. They were almost at spring. The nice days are coming. Be able to go practice some of this on the field. So thank you. Appreciate Aidan and Steve for jumping in and being unannounced, but no problem there. That's
Thanks,
not
Tom.
new. Night, guys and girls. See you later.
Bye.
Thanks, good.
Come on.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.